Just like any other household tool, rifles have specific capabilities. And while they may be used to accomplish a wide variety of things, it's often better to build them out with a specific task in mind. And keeping an asset defensive mindset, we need to consider all environments we might find ourselves in, such as a bump in the night where there's little to no light available. So building out your rifle to be a night fighting setup could help you accomplish that task and be more of an asset in that scenario. Today we're going to be talking about the Cobalt Kinetics and GBRS collaboration Project Poseidon and how I have this set up to accomplish night fighting. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the supporters of this channel. The night vision you see in this video was provided by Armasight. Great night vision, great product. Please use the affiliate link to support me and support Armasight and what they're doing over there. Also, I want to talk about how you can support this channel. As you can tell, YouTube has been censoring a lot of gun communities and channels across the board, no matter how big or small. Things you can do to support are like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Also, go ahead and follow me over on X. That right now is the premier platform for free speech. They don't censor your content. They don't have a political agenda. They just want people to have a voice, which I think is absolutely amazing. I've already started posting all of my videos over there, and I will continue to do so as I believe that platform is the future for the 2A community. Lastly, go check out the website, defensivesolutions.com. Just launched, new merch over there. Pick up some merch if you like what you see. Let's get into the video. So first of all, what is Project Poseidon? Project Poseidon is a collaboration between Cobalt Kinetics and GBRS. It is a CK Pro 11.5 AR pistol that GBRS Group has built out to their specifications and what they like. Elephant in the room, I'm not affiliated with GBRS. I purchased this before the whole social media debacle, and I know they get a lot of heat, so I am not affiliated, they are not paying me, and I get nothing from this video. It's just a product that I wanted to review, that I wanted to check out. The only parts of this setup that are specific to GBRS are the Cerakote AR1 paint job and the Hydra mount for the EOTech. Everything else is specific to Cobalt Kinetics or another company using products that I like and that I think would have made a good night fighting setup. Regarding the controversy surrounding GBRS, I'm not going to put my opinion out there because frankly it doesn't matter and it doesn't contribute to the video at all. So if you want to go research what happened, go ahead and feel free to do so on another channel. So as a firearm itself, how does the CK Pro fare in comparison to most other rifles? Well, some of the things I like specifically about the Cobalt Kinetics are the Voltor A5 buffer system that came with the setup, the tight tolerances between the receiver, the nipple that the buffer actually has on it and it seats itself inside the bolt carrier, and just the overall ergonomics of the gun itself. I love how they crafted the lower receiver to have some finger grooves in the magwell. They have a flared magwell and it came with a 45-degree ambi safety selector. Additionally, it came with a carbon fiber proof barrel, which I think really helps heat dissipation and mitigate the handguard getting overly hot and unable to hold. The Cobalt Kinetics CK Pro is an absolute beast of a setup. I have nothing but good things to say about it. And again, the only specific things to GBRS are the Hydra EOTech mount and the paint job. So everything else is either something that I have thrown on it myself or that came with the Cobalt Kinetics CK Pro firearm. So when building out a night fighting build, there are certain goals that I'm looking to achieve. Number one being detect to engage effectively in a no and low light environment. The second goal is going to be remaining undetected. So while I want to detect and engage the enemy effectively, I don't want them to do the same to me. So that's keeping a low signature with my muzzle device, that's using IR instead of white light, and that's passive aiming so that I'm not actually emitting anything. The last goal in mind is to maintain and or minimally affect my daytime performance standards. So while I have all this Gucci-ness set up so that it's capable at night, I don't want to lose my capabilities and my performance just because I've added these things on there. In fact, if anything, I want it to enhance my capability, make it a little bit easier to engage my target. With those goals in mind, I'm going to go over what I have and how I'm going to achieve those goals and the capabilities that I want to have out of this build to make it effective in no and low light scenarios. So the way I'm going to break this build down is by the capabilities that I wanted to achieve. First of those being passive aiming capabilities. Now with night vision, it's not always advantageous to use your IR or your vis laser or your IR floodlight because you're emitting light. So in order to engage the target without emitting light, you may have to passively aim. A couple things you're going to need in order to do that are a night vision capable optic such as the EOTech EXPS 3-0. This is a single MOA dot with a 68 MOA circle. This helps with target identification and target engagement because the big circle allows for a lot of information to pass through without really getting in the way. I also can use the hash marks underneath the single MOA dot as a holdover since I'm using the high-rise mount. Under night vision, it is a little more difficult to get a good sight picture. That's not to say it's impossible when something is mounted directly to the rail. A lot of people don't like these high-rise mounts because of the height over bore. I have found that that is strictly a skill or training issue. You can really overcome that by just getting to know your optic, your holdovers with your zero, and training a lot with your equipment. Just like John McPhee said, when it comes to killing your target and putting effective rounds on target, it really doesn't matter height over bore. There are some heights that are maybe more ideal for certain applications, such as long distance. I wouldn't necessarily want a high-rise mount for something where I'm using high amount of magnification, because then I'm compensating less for that height over bore. But I found with the CQB dedicated and shorter rifle setups, it really doesn't matter as long as you train with it, especially when you have to throw on a gas mask or something like that. Not only that, but I also find it funny that the same people complaining about height over bore issues on these high-rise Hydra mounts or Unity mounts are also the same people running top dots in their LPVO, which is just about the same height over bore. And I've seen a lot of people use that effectively out to several hundred yards just with their top dot. So if you can overcome the difficulties using that, you can overcome the difficulties using this. And again, it all comes down to training. I have appreciated the utility behind the Hydra so far. I've used it on the BCM as well, but you can also go with things like the Unity mount or ScalarWorks mount that are a little bit lower. I think they're around 2.26, and there are some that are about 1.9 and 1.7, a little less drastic of a height over bore. However, I really like the Hydra, and I think it also looks pretty cool, especially with the paint job. I also want to discuss the use of the magnifier. So under night vision, this is extremely difficult to line up. That's why I have it on the QD mount, because when I need to get rid of it, I can just detach it QD and throw this in my pocket. And I'm likely not going to be using this under night vision because just like an LPVO or any other magnified optic, it's extremely difficult to line up all the lenses, get everything perfect, get a good sight picture and pull the trigger and then re-engage consistently. So this is typically how I'm going to run it under night vision because the tubes don't get in the way of anything. The mount is far enough forward where I'm not going to bump it under recoil. However, I am going to bring that with me because it's a good capability to have when there is enough light to not need my night vision. I think that the Hydra provides a couple benefits. For me, number one is that it removes any risk of laser obscuration. So if I go to use my laser and my left hand is in front of it, I'm not worried about the laser bouncing off my hand and blooming out my night vision. There are other couple mounts that do the same thing. I know JagerWorks just came out with one, ScalarWorks has one, and the HRF diving board, I think. They all kind of do the same thing, but this was kind of the OG of that design concept. So it also came with the rifle, so that's the one that I went with, but there are a bunch of other options to achieve that desired effect. Number two is it also brings the weight of the laser from being all the way out here back towards the center. So it kind of gives the rifle a little more of a balanced feel to it. Not necessarily a huge issue, but it is something to consider if you're always presenting from low ready or high ready. Just feeling a little more balanced just makes it feel good when you're presenting the weapon. The last thing I've kind of already mentioned is raising the optic up a little bit to assist with your sight picture. So while it's not necessary, and I'm sure you could get a decent sight picture with an optic that is directly mounted to the rail system, it just makes it a little bit easier, a little more comfortable. And people do complain about the prone position being a problem. It's definitely not ideal, but it is possible. I've taken this thing out to 500 yards in this exact configuration at a ridgeline course, and I had zero problems. It was, slightly uncomfortable to perform, but it still did just fine. The last thing that I put on here to enable my passive aiming capability is some sort of muzzle device. I went with the Huxworks Flow 556K because out of the 11.5 barrel, the CK Pro had a ridiculous muzzle flash, as I'm sure a lot of short-barreled weapon systems do because there's unburnt powder that is now combusting as it comes out of the barrel. The muzzle flash is so ridiculous that it temporarily blinds me from seeing the target effectively. So in order to accomplish the passive aiming, I went with that, the Hydro mount, and the EOTech EXPS. This may not be the best suppressor, however, it does accomplish two things: flash suppression and sound suppression. It still is pretty loud because of its flow-through technology, but that helps reduce the back pressure, less gas in the face. A lot of pros to that. A laser aiming module is an absolute must for the active aiming capability in a night vision build. I went with the Somogear NGAL.
What?
Because it is about 10 times cheaper than the actual L3 NGAL. And I know what you're thinking. You put a fake laser or an airsoft laser on a night build. Yes, but it is also extremely effective. It maintains the zero. It's made out of aluminum construction and it's potted. It has a lot of the same features that the actual NGAL does. And I don't have to worry about losing all my money because I still have the warranty with the manufacturer. When you buy lasers on the gray market, such as the EOTech OGL, you risk losing all of your money if it breaks. On the flip side of that, consider the fact that the more money you try to save with something like a Somogear laser over a full power laser, the more reliability and quality control you might lose. It still has a fantastic IR laser and IR illuminator, super bright, and if anything, the IR high modes are a little too bright, so I usually use the low modes. You may not actually need the brightness and the full power of those actual units. I typically find myself using the IR low and Vis low mode because anything else is just too bright for my night vision, especially up close. Where those high power and full power lasers do come into play are long distance, target identification, or communication with other units such as aircraft or people in other locations. They're extremely bright, they travel very far, so it does have its use. It may not be necessary for the build that you're looking to build. That's why I've gone with the Somogear NGAL, or you could go with a civilian laser and you're not gonna lose a whole lot of capability. But this accomplishes my active aiming capability, and that helps me engage targets at night, maybe from a further distance, or when I don't have a great sight picture, I can just use my Unity Axon button to engage using a visible laser, or IR illuminator. So this has been a must in any night build, and it's ultimately your decision to go with a full power, let's say a PEC 15 or the EOTech OGL. However, it's a little bit more of a financial burden. It does accomplish a few more things, like you get the American made, you get the reliability, you get quality control, but here you're saving 10 times the amount of money, getting the same capabilities, and you may just be worried about it maybe failing on you because there's less quality control. That's something I'm willing to deal with as a private citizen. Would I recommend everybody do that? Not necessarily. The last capability I wanted out of my night vision build was target identification, and that's by way of my Surefire 340 Vampire. What I really like about that is I can just turn the head and get white light out of it, IR light, or I can turn it completely off, which completely mitigates any risk of a white light or IR light ND. I really like that feature because you never know when you're just gonna accidentally press the button. And while the Unity Axon does have a recessed light button and laser button to help you avoid NDs, it's not a guarantee. So when you have it in the off mode, it is an absolute guarantee that this thing is not gonna go off. And just to ensure, when I am on white mode, I have the 100 Concepts light cap, and that's just an insurance policy. I think that's also kind of a good feature about this build, is reducing the risk of reflectivity coming off the lens of here and the lens of the EOTech. Every optic and every light that you mount on your gun should have a light cap or some sort of anti-reflection device. But anyways, back to the Surefire Vampire. Target identification is extremely important in no and low light scenarios because you can't just come out, finger on the trigger, guns a-blazing. You have to be able to ID the target as hostile. So whether you're gonna go white light or IR, try to remain a little more discreet in using your night vision. You need that capability. I think it's definitely a key capability in a night vision build. There may be some other considerations and accoutrements that you want to add to your setup to make it a little more capable. First thing I really like is the Unity Axon. What this provides me is consistency of grip in day or night. No matter what environment I'm in, I'm gonna grip it the same way. I don't have to worry about avoiding my laser or avoiding my white light pressure pad because I always have the same grip in day or night, and I'm not that worried about negligent discharge of my white light due to the recessed buttons and just the way that this thing is shaped. Another cool feature about the Unity Axon is that it's the sync model. And while it's not a feature that I was necessarily looking for originally, it is something I found to be extremely useful when you need it. And what it does is, if you need to go over now with the white light and the red laser, visible laser, no matter what mode the end goal is in, as long as you have your light on white, you press the light button and both white light and red laser come out. So if you really need to engage overtly, you press that and you're good to go. The last thing about it is the 14-inch cable length that allows it to reach back to the laser aiming module no matter where I place this along the rail. So if I wanted to have it a little bit closer or a little farther away, then I can do so. Next thing is ambidextrous controls. So the Cobalt Kinetics did not come with an ambidextrous bolt release, so I've added on the Magpul bad lever to assist with that. It did come with the ambidextrous safety selector and the Radian Raptor and the ambidextrous magazine release. Those things I think are also a must for my night builds because it makes it a little bit easier to find the controls, especially when I can't see. Reloading is a little bit more difficult because you're having to look under your tubes or you just straight up can't see it at all. So reaching and finding your controls, no matter what hand you're using and no matter what lighting environment you're in, is extremely important. The last thing you might want to consider is your magazine well. Reloading, again, is very difficult under low light scenarios, so the Cobalt Kinetics does have a flared mag well out of the factory, but if it doesn't, you could add the HRF Concepts magwell, which assists in getting that magazine in there, especially when you can't see it at all. The last thing I want to talk about is sling choice. I've gone with the Edgar Sherman Designs sling for a couple of reasons. One, it's extremely minimalist and it has very little extra material on it, so it reduces the snag hazard at night, and there's nothing more frustrating than getting caught on something or not be able to don and doff your rifle for whatever reason. So minimalist sling is a must for me. It also is extremely adjustable with this pull tab here, and then I've added a QD mount on each end of it, as well as a 2 to 1 point sling mount, so that in any scenario that I need to use it, whether it's indoors, outdoors, I'm covered there. I have been using Edgar Sherman Design slings for a while and they're absolutely amazing. So the largest issue people have with building out a night vision or a night fighting rifle setup is cost. What do these setups cost? Well, as always, the answer is it depends. Generally, they are not cheap. That's why I was talking about earlier, saving a little bit of money where you can, but spending where you need to. You can go a long way with a quality rifle setup, a capable optic, and a reliable white light, but you're missing out on a few things such as IR capability using the laser aiming module or IR flood, and you may be missing out on a suppressor. Those kind of things are decisions you need to make based on your needs and your budget. I went with things that I knew I could trust, that I could afford, and that are accomplishing the capability and the task that I need it to. I think musts for night vision builds are gonna be a white light, a laser aiming module, and a night vision capable optic. Everything else you can kind of get away without, but the choices I made with this rifle were to mitigate problems or accomplish certain capabilities. Especially with high-end rifles, you need to strike a balance between what you need to spend money on, where you can save, and also the point of diminishing returns. So when it comes to the L3 Engol, I knew that I'd be spending so much money and I'm not really getting a whole lot out of it that I could afford to save a little bit and go with the Somogear Engol. However, I did really want to try a full power, American-made lasering module such as the EOTech OGL, and I think that thing strikes a good balance between cost and capability. A lot of people choose to go with used gray market full power PEX, and I think that's also a great choice. There are just choices you need to make, decisions you need to make on where to spend money and where you need to save it, and what capabilities you need to accomplish with your setup. Do you need to make every rifle setup you own capable of night vision? I would say no, but there are certain things that I wanted to make consistent across the board for ease of use and performance standards no matter which setup I'm using. I wanted each optic to be capable of night vision, but not necessarily dedicated. So that way, no matter what optic and environment I'm using and find myself in, I'm capable of using my night vision with each setup. The last thing I wanted to do is make sure that I have an IR laser capability so I can actively aim when using night vision, and that way, no matter which setup I find myself in or environment I find myself in, I can accomplish the same task, even though they may be built out for certain specific things. So what are the priorities when building out your purpose-specific rifle setup? Firstly, I would say don't sacrifice performance for capability. Just because you want a night vision or night-capable setup doesn't mean that you should sacrifice comfortability with the use of your gear, your performance standards, or anything else. Additionally, budget. If you need something to accomplish a specific capability such as night vision and you need to save up for that laser or that IR capable light, the night vision optic, then start saving. However little amount of money, set it aside slowly over time. These things are not cheap, so make sure that you're budgeting properly and you then purchase, buy once, cry once, purchase the product that you need to put on your rifle and call it good. Lastly, most importantly, train. No matter what your setup is, whether it's just a plain Jane rifle with a white light and a red dot, train with it. You can get extremely capable with a minimalist setup in a low light environment. You don't need all this fancy goodness. You just need to train a lot with a lot of rounds. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.